Hi everyone, it's great to be here and it's my pleasure to be moderating this fantastic panel very soon. I would like to thank the IAF for for organizing this wonderful conference. I would like to invite my wonderful panelists on stage. So when I take your name, please come above. Steve Durst, Director of ILOA. Welcome. A round of applause, please, from the audience. Pascale Ehrenfreund, President of COSPAR, please come above. Bernard Foing, Executive Director, International Lunar Exploration Working Group. And both of them stellar space scientists, Pascale and Bernard. Tanja Masson-Zwaan, space lawyer, acclaimed space lawyer. Welcome. Guarav Seth, ex-ISRO, as well as the CEO of PierSight, a private space company in India. Please get seated. It's always going to be tough following up on an astronaut session, but I'm more than confident in my stellar panel that they'll make it worth your while. So let's get started. So I would like to get started with an icebreaker. Before my panel introduces themselves and the excellent work they are all doing in their respective fields, I would like to start with an icebreaker for the, for the crowd here, because we just had an excellent astronaut session, and we know that this decade we are aiming to put astronauts on the moon. Both the US and China have plans to land astronauts before 2030. So I would like to have a quick show of hands from my panel as well as from the crowd as to who do you think will land humans on the moon first this decade. Of course, both of them will, and that's going to be amazing. But who do you think will land humans on the moon first? Will it be the Chinese or will it be the Americans? Steve?
Well, the way things stand now, it looks like NASA in America is looking for 2027, 2028. I would imagine my own gut feeling is that the two countries will land their citizens within a year of each other.
Yeah, so we have heard actually, yesterday from all the different programs, there are deadlines. And in that, currently NASA leads, in the time schedule. But we have to see that lunar missions, they are very, very complex, and they might have delays. And it is always possible that it will be shifted. But I think we wish everybody well, and we want that somebody succeeds. It will remain competitive.
My baby landed on the moon in 2006, but it was a robot. And it was the first of this millennium. But I think humanity will land on the moon with all of us. And we have all friends in Asia, in America, in Europe. And it will be, I think, a benefit for all of us.
Of course, the Americans were the first. China is going very fast. I had the privilege of visiting a few months ago, and I was deeply impressed. But I would say I hope it would be a joint mission, Americans and Chinese at the same time.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, I think I agree with Steve that both countries would be very close to each other. I don't know which one would be first because engineering is complex. But something I wish for is humanity lands on moon this decade.
Amazing. Can we get a show of hands from the audience? Who do you think will land first? Will it be the Americans? Can we get a show of hands, please? Okay, I see quite a few. And what about, will it be the Chinese who will land first? Okay, so more people, I think I would include myself in there. So I think more people think that China will land humans on the moon first. But regardless, it's going to be amazing to have both of these countries land humans on the moon again so that we can explore further and farther than ever before. All right, so I would allow all my panelists to introduce themselves and give us a good sense of their work, because all of them are coming from deeply different backgrounds.
Yeah.
So I would like to start with Steve.
Thank you, Jatan. I'm Steve Durst, the director of the International Lunar Observatory Association based in Hawaii, on Hawaii Island. The purpose of ILOA is to expand human understanding of the cosmos through observation from the moon. ILOA has a number of moon missions. Our flagship, ILO-1, which we've been pursuing for a number of years, has a number of objectives. The first one is to take the first image of the Milky Way galaxy ever from the lunar surface in this century robotically, and then to expand astronomy from the moon, a new frontier for astronomy with invited astronomical observations by leading astronomers and observatories around the world, to advance independent enterprises, and to conduct our second main function after observation, which is communications, first scientific and then commercial. We also have Earth observation as a growing important function of observation from the moon, and also lunar-based build-out to be a part of that phenomena. We have a number of precursor missions. One conducted last year on the first lander by the USA in over 50 years. Intuitive Machines 1 carried a number of NASA and independent payloads, including our ILOX experimental two cameras, two small telescopes, which did get some great imagery on the way in, a few star trails, picture of the sun from the lunar surface. So that was completed. We gained a lot of information. The landing was off nominal, but there's still many benefits. We have software assets on the moon that we haven't even begun to utilize, including our Space Calendar Weekly. ILOC, which proposal was accepted by the Chang'e 7 China National Space Association for one of the international payloads to launch next year, I believe in August, to the Moon South Pole, which has always been our interest and destination, the Moon South Pole. Your Professor Rao was a founding director of ILOA, and on his own initiative traveled 3 times from Bangalore to Hawaii to learn and contribute to our focus at the Moon South Pole. So we are very happy to see India achieve the first mission to the South Pole region. ILOC is a consortium of 4 partners at this point. Our ILOA, our longtime partners at the National Astronomical Observatory in China, are also long-term partners in Thailand with NARIT, the National Astronomical Research Institute of Thailand, and more recently, Hong Kong University. Finally, these initiatives, independent initiatives for communications, observation and communications, we hope contribute to the dialogue that our affiliated space age publishing company and ILOA Galaxy forums, such as this one, are considering. A big picture, here we are in 2025, 1/4 of the way through this pivotal 21st century. A great time to take stock, look ahead, be ambitious, optimistic about what we humans can do in the next 75 years with our resources and wise application of our ideals. I happen to think, and I think this is a challenge for space agencies, not just NASA or ISRO or the Chinese Space Agency, but all the space agencies, universities, think tanks, aerospace corporations, to take a good look, what comes next. In India's case, 2047 and 2040 on the moon, but how about 2050 or 2075? And I really believe that The human destiny in the 21st century will be decided in the Jupiter and Saturn systems, where 90% of the solar system mass, planetary mass, is located. So it's this big vision that our entrepreneurial, independent efforts, I think, are part of a larger picture that will expand the dimension and the sphere of opportunity for individual achievement. And those are my introductory remarks, Jatan. I hope I didn't take too long.
Thanks, Steve. Pascale.
Yes, good morning and thank you for inviting me here. I'm Pascale Ehrenfreund, the president of the Committee on Space Research, COSPAR. And I just want to take a little bit a different approach. We have heard a lot, in particular from space agencies, about their programs also in the next decade. But this is an example from BryceTech published last year about the missions, the moon missions in the following 10 years. And so these are more than 150, and you can actually download it somewhere on the internet, that you see how many countries are involved, how many commercial actors are involved, how many space agencies involved, and that really looks at missions going to the cislunar region, but also, of course, to the surface on the moon. And that makes you think this surge, you know, of renewed interest in the moon and how we are going to handle it. So I just want to say that COSPAR, the Committee on Space Research, was founded in 1958. And it was actually the first organization which was granted an observer status in the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, UN-GOPUS. And here we work very, very strongly with the United Nations committees on planetary protection and space debris, mission planning, defense, space weather, and many other subjects. COSPAR covers all space disciplines and has 14,000 associates. And in that kind, we actually really are looking also at sustainable space exploration activities and looking at this enormous surge of missions, which will not all reach the moon, obviously, but are in the planning at the moment. We are also working with a lot of other organizations like the World Economic Forum, and this is an article we published for some of the important measurements on sustainability for space exploration activities, in particular for the moon, that we do not have really environmental databases. We don't have anything comprehensive. We have to align the space stakeholders, and I'm sure we will discuss that in the panel, in a dialogue, so that they exchange knowledge. We have to drive a consensus building on harmful contamination. It is something which is not agreed upon. This is a very important subject. We're getting data on the moon all the time. We have to incorporate the scientific research into policies continuously. We have to be more transparent. We have heard interoperability. Imagine you have two, we will come back to that. I think, imagine you have two companies and they want to land. They need to have a safety zone. They want to land at the same place and more or less do similar things. How do you handle that? So coordinate regulatory mechanisms, and we have actually an expert on the panel which will look at this, certainly explain it. And public awareness, we have just seen that in the last panel, how important that is. So I just wanted to think this really incredible surge of missions in the future. I think we have to address also sustainability.
Thanks, Pascale.
Thank you. So fasten your seatbelt. We are going to the moon all together. And so we started already 30 years ago when we created the International Lunar Exploration Working Group, ILOA-ILEWG, between agencies, but also open to academia, industries, explorers. You are all part of it. And ILOA-ILEWG reports to agencies, but also to the COSPAR commissions and also the panel on exploration. And in 2001, we created also a Society of Lunar explorers worldwide where we can get some money. So you can donate, but we got also grants. We can monitor activities. We have events. We have research grant, and we have a special Young Lunar Explorers grant in all disciplines, from science, technologies, even space diplomacy and law. So how do we implement NewSpace? Because that's about NewSpace, this panel. We do NewSpace, new technology, new AI, machine learning applied to data analysis, new technologies, miniaturization of instruments, cooperative robotics. We also started a program of CubeSat. We do also NewSpace in terms of we managed to get money. We got commercial partners paying us to deliver them some research services. We got grant from EU, we got grant from space agencies, from universities. And we go in the field to really test things like we would be on the moon and Mars. So we go on volcanoes like Etna, we go to Hawaii, nice places to train to go to the moon. But we also developed a special training academy for our researchers, astronauts, our business people, and we try to train the next generation, not only in science, but also in being innovator and making business. And another activities, we try to develop space as a place for peace. So we have Space for Peace, and we have also Space Renaissance for All. So already in 2010, we were into commercial lunar exploration. We built, together with some of the Google Lunar X Prize team that wanted to win $20 million, we built some small lander to test how to deploy instrument rovers on board. So we tested them in the stack. A small instrument was the Akuto rover, which later led to the company iSpace. So they grew much more than I did, but we were part of this group of 20 competitors for Google and X Prize. And then we tried to test this instrument in the lab, but also in the field. So we went to Etna, a volcano, so together with the German Aerospace Center, ESA, we went to Utah, Mars Desert, we went also to other places, Atacama, and now we have access to a number of bases, and we are running one base, which is in Mauna Loa volcano, called IC. But we went also to many places, and we want to go to all continents. 4 years ago, we made also a proposal to the European Commission to get money to train space entrepreneurs. We got the money, but we use it to train them together with space researchers and with astronauts. And these are some of our partners from universities, but also companies that are involved in this Euro Space Hub. And in this part, we also created a new curriculum in collaboration with some universities to train the next generation of space explorers in science, in technology, in humanities, social science, also in management and business, and we continued also the training in hands-on astronautic activity, which should be done for everybody. So one example of business we have developed is applying AI to Earth observation data, monitoring cities, but we do that also for other exploration domains. Another commercial activities, we have been involved in some payload on some commercial landers, and now we have got also a collaboration with Cosmosis, a lunar lander company that pays us to deliver some science and research service. So we act as chief scientists for Cosmosis to develop payload for lunar landers and for quantum satellites. More recently, also, we developed a collaboration with Space Renaissance International, a foundation to develop also all the humanistic aspect of going to space. And we propose, we are observer as well at the United Nations, like COSPA, and we propose to have Space Development Goal 18 dedicated to space for all on Earth and beyond. And we have now more than 130 organizations that endorse these activities. And as also a concrete action, we even developed a payload we are going to launch in June to celebrate Space Renaissance for All. It's a gallery where we are going to expose scientific samples, some biology, some plants, some seeds, but also we'll have 10 artwork celebrating space, and we have also some logos of 40 organizations, including IAF, COSPA, we have the UN flag to celebrate who are the main actors in this new ecosystem of space. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernard. Tanja?
Thank you, Jatan. So I don't have any cool pictures to share because I am a space lawyer, and I can show you a picture of the United Nations Treaties booklet. And you know, when I became a space lawyer, actually at the beginning of my career, after having studied international law, it was really a weird profession. People said, "Space law, what is that? Does it exist?" Nowadays, it's not so exotic anymore, and that is actually really good. It is now part and parcel of any space mission that you have to pay attention to the legal and the policy and the regulatory aspects. And so we have developed a body of law and a body of treaties and soft law, as we call it, of rules that govern activities in outer space. And in all of these instruments, you will see the term the moon and other celestial bodies, which is interesting. This panel is about the moon, and the moon is also really singled out in those international legal instruments, which is special. It's the only celestial body humankind has set foot on. It is the one that everybody, if the weather is good, sees from everywhere on Earth every day. It is part of the Earth-Moon system. We are part of the Earth-space system. The moon, in some cultures or religions, has a very special place. And so the regulation for our activities on the moon, I think, is really important. And several states, a handful of states, or a little bit more than a handful of states, have been to the moon. But I think, Pascale, you mentioned also the other day that there is, 150 missions planned. And so this is a sea change that we're going through at the moment in this new space era with private companies going to the moon. So how are we going to regulate that? And regulation not in the sense of stifling or bothering them or annoying them with rules, but also facilitating their ambitious plans. And some of those plans may be great and some of those plans may be less great. Do we want a Coca-Cola billboard on the moon, or ashes spread over the moon surface, or do we want to protect certain the footprints of Neil Armstrong? Do we want to, well, whatever we want to do, we will have to find ways to regulate that. And those rules that I mentioned, they are for states. And so the big issue will be, and I'm sure we will be discussing it perhaps later, is how do we make sure that those private entities also are part of that regulatory ecosystem. And so that is my mission. I teach students. I see really an increasing interest of the young generation in legal aspects, and I particularly applaud also students from STEM areas, so the science and technology and math, who are also interested to learn about this. And I think that is really also important, that we have interdisciplinary approaches. We should not all be on our island, on our silo, but we have to consider all these aspects of space exploration, including the legal ones. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Tanja. What is space but interdisciplinary, right?
Sorry?
What is space but interdisciplinary at the end of the day?
Exactly. Yeah.
Gaurav?
Yeah. Thanks, Jatan. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Guarav Seth. I'm the CEO of PierSight Space. We are a new space startup building Earth observation satellites for persistent ocean monitoring using synthetic aperture radar and AIS sensors. Before starting PierSight, I used to be a scientist at ISRO, and probably why I'm invited to this panel. So during my time at ISRO, I worked on the Chandrayaan-2 mission on the dual frequency synthetic aperture radar, as well as the proposal for LUNEX mission, which was going on during that time. And I must say that my experience of building planetary science payloads has significantly inspired the designs of our company as well.
Excellent. Thank you. So thanks for all the introductions. I would like to start with some of the interesting themes that we are seeing in modern lunar exploration. So when you contrast the Apollo era and the Soviet era of moon missions, you had these missions being mounted by primarily two countries, but now we are in a very different setting where not only the space superpowers are having missions to the moon, but you also have many countries mounting their first lunar missions, and they are being done in very different ways. Some are going as commercial payloads, some are going as government-enabled commercial payloads, some are going as a purely scientific payload, and then you have all sorts of collaboration, symmetric, asymmetric, cooperation, and so on. So I would like to start with Steve, because as he mentioned during his opening introduction, that he has already sent ILOA-X camera payload on the Intuitive Machines IM-1 mission, and they are about to send ILO-C on Chang'e 7. And those are two very different entities that you get to work with, right? One of them is a US commercial entity, or US private lander entity, and one of them is a Chinese National Space Agency, right? So tell us, Steve, how did those arrangements come about, and how do you see this as being a distinct way to fly payloads to the moon? Because I'm sure that 20 years ago this probably would not have been possible, or would have been done very differently. So tell us about your experience and how did that come about?
Well, we've been pursuing this for quite a number of years. ILOA was founded in 2007. I think the advent of the NASA CLIPS program opened up opportunities for different kinds of companies and different kinds of experiments. Art, which was mentioned by Jatan previously, archives, data centers, many opportunities, including astronomy, and communications, which will follow astronomy. So with the arrival of the NASA CLIPS program, we were able to choose amongst a number of carriers, and did have an agreement and a contract with Intuitive Machines, and they have a number of additional missions also assigned by the CLIPS program. So there are widening opportunities now, and it's not just Intuitive Machines, there are a number of companies, and I made that argument or advocacy to China that China may do well with some kind of a PPP, public-private partnership, CLIPS type arrangement to increase the number of landings. In the case of the long-time collaboration that ILOA and our affiliated Space Age Publishing Company have had with New China, we saw that opportunity. We made a proposal for Chang'e 6, which didn't go to the South Pole, where we're focused keenly on, as are many other agencies and enterprises. But we did get selected for Chang'e 7. It's been a very interesting story forming this partnership because of certain difficulties collaborating with our longtime friends and partners in Canada who were not able to fully collaborate with China. So the ILOC mission is still evolving. We have a developing dynamic partnership with Thailand, which is exemplary for astronomy. So different approaches, Jatan, with both USA and China.
Yeah, thanks. I would now like to ask Pascale and Bernard about their experience with space science missions, and how do you think that plays into this modern context where private and commercial lunar landers do carry a lot more volume of science instruments to the moon now than in the past couple of decades. But at the same time, they have their own, not only they unlock possibilities, but also they have challenges, because the primary goal is dictated by their own needs and own purposes. So I would like to know from you as to how do you see the kinds of science that is now possible and within the timeframes that was not possible before. But at the same time, what is the kind of control that you don't have as a PI on a mission that is going to, let's say, anywhere on the moon? You may not have probably control over the landing site, or you may not have enough control over the operations. So I would like to hear on, what are the kinds of scientific enterprises that have opened up from private missions going to the moon, and at the same time, what are its challenges?
Well, I start in the positive way that I think, as we have seen how many missions are actually in preparation or in the planning stage, that this is really a boost for science. At the moment, all these kind of small landers are taking a lot of instruments on board, and I think it provides a lot of payload opportunities which are also low cost. So right now I see it as a really positive thing, in particular because in the GLEX program and so on, it is still overseen by space agencies. So it's not yet completely a lone commercial. So I think it's a perfect situation. Obviously, scientists have to adapt to the situation and to the configuration of the spacecraft and so on. But I think everybody's happy, and in particular the low costs offers more possibility. And I just want to say before I give it further to people which are really built instruments or flew instruments. It is very, very important to explore the moon. It is, as I said yesterday, a part of the Earth. Even if you want to land and do in situ resource utilization in the future, you have to understand where you are going, what your environment is, what your mineralogy is, in order to plan a very, very good mission. So it is in the interest of all commercial players in order to work strongly together with science and research organizations and space agency in order to look at lunar environment. We want to bring humans, to the moon. We want to build habitats. We have to understand the environment of the moon, and the science is really, really important.
Thanks, Bernard.
Yeah, so I come from old space. We call it legacy space because but now we became younger because we are going into new space. But the virtue of the legacy space, it has developed some technologies, and most of the new science results have unveiled new faces of the moon. They come from government programs so far. Also from program funding very interesting payload for the moon and also for planetary destination, for solar, space, weather, and so on. And they were really developed with government research funds. So we have to continue to fund fundamental research and all this. But now we have also the opportunities of going to the next step, and it will be partly for science, but also it will be for developing technologies that we need and knowledge that we need for the next step of working and living on the moon. So where we will need to develop life support system. We want also, because we have resources available, we want to learn how to harvest some of these resources. That's solar power. We found ice on the moon. I have estimated 1 billion ton of ice, which could be collected on the top 2 meters. And we don't want to use it all, by the way. And don't drink it, because it contains some cometary compound, like cyanide and others. You have to filter it. But you need also to learn. We can also do science from the moon. It's a great platform. And like Steve, he has put a small telescope to observe our galaxy. We could have access to the dark ages of the universe. And that will require big facilities. But at the moment, making benefit of this transport program, which was developed at the time of Google LUNEX Prize. Some of these companies then became the big one that got contracted to develop the CLIPS. We will be able to also put some larger instrument, and then we'll have Starship that can put 100 tons. So then we can be prepared for very large facilities, but it's also very important that creativity doesn't come only with big things. You need also to have the challenge of doing innovative concept. So it's good to have an ecosystem where you have both small research and also large facilities. So there are potential, but they still are to come. And we need also, in parallel to the supporting the human program, continue to support the research and fundamental science to make good use of this opportunity of emplacing a moon village.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for those perspectives, Bernard and Pascal. The moon is a scientific bonanza, and and it's ultimately at the end of the day, I believe what you're trying to say is that if the entire academic community thrives, it's then when we know that we are exploring the moon the right way, scientifically, right?
And also, it's not only for the scientists. You need a scientist to help characterize the environment, the condition, and this will help all the other actors. So if you have a commercial program to the moon, earmark 10% of the budget for the scientists. You can employ them to do work for you.
Absolutely. Thanks. Tanya, I would like to turn it over to you now. So with Steve, we talked about how in this new age of moon missions, we have possibilities of flying payloads in different ways than before. But there's also the flip side to it, which is you could also see, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, you could also have payloads that are not necessarily flown responsibly, or even if they are flown responsibly, you could always have accidents. We all know here that moon missions are extremely hard. There will be crashes, unintended crashes. So we just had Ashes being flown on Astrobotics lander. Thankfully, it didn't crash on the moon. But in the case of Space ILS lander, it did crash on the moon. And so we had payloads there which were carrying, life forms. So with the cluster of moon missions in the South Polar region to be expected, and with private entities also there, as well as national missions ongoing in parallel, how do you think this is supposed to be managed from the perspective of sustainability, and also from the perspective of keeping everyone informed vis-a-vis the UN? And what I know, there have been some discussions that you mentioned that the UN has been having on space resources as well as on coordinating the actors. So could you please paint us a picture of what the challenges are and what role should be played via the UN, as well as what the actors should be cognizant of?
Yeah, thank you. I think that is a very important question. And indeed, we're going to see that mix of actors, right? It's not only the US and the Soviet Union, it's now states and entities, private entities, perhaps even individuals later on who will want to live on the moon. And of course, the moon is you. The moon is big. But there are certain areas that are favorite, right? Everybody wants to go to the poles because we know that there may be possibilities to sustain life there. And so there will be a need for coordination. In space law, the system is really built on supervision by states. It is all law that makes states responsible for national activities, including activities by private entities, and also liable for damage. So if a private company would indeed cause damage because it uses nuclear power or dangerous instruments or raises up dust, and the dust gets into the machinery of an expensive state mission or whatever, it will not be the company that will be held liable who can receive a claim, but it will be the launching state of that company. So the question of oversight is extremely important in the sense of supervising those national activities, which makes the licensing systems and the authorization and supervision, which are state obligations, and we have 115 states that are party to the Outer Space Treaty, and you could even say it's customary law, it's binding on everyone who would like to go to the moon, because it has been in existence for nearly 60 years. You will have to find ways to implement that into national law. And how states do that may differ, because states have different policies. One state may want to attract space business and accept maybe crazy missions, and another is perhaps more interested in sustainability or in ethical matters or whatever. So we do not have a guarantee that these regulations governing the private companies will be harmonized. And that is why I think the role of the United Nations is essential. We see, of course, things happening with agreements being concluded, whether it's Artemis Accords or ILRS, where certain principles are adopted. But it remains essential to have that coordination in the United Nations, which also has set up an action team for lunar activities coordination at LAC. And that is an initiative that was proposed by Romania. And that is, I think, important. And you see that states are interested in cooperating in that. Why? Because it's also in their interest, right? Because your national law may be governing the activities of your private entities, but it will not protect you against activities of a company of another state or another state's activities. So even though we have these national laws or regional corporations, that global consultation, if you like, or coordination remains essential. And so that is why even though sometimes you hear the United Nations and COPOS, it's slow and it's not making any treaties anymore, and we even have a moon treaty, but it's the first and only treaty for which a state actually resigned. It withdrew. So that is, of course, a worrying scenario. But overall, I think that we should really cherish that multilateral diplomatic forum for coordination.
Thanks so much. I would like to have a quick follow-up on that. You mentioned the Artemis Accords and the ILRS programs respectively. There's Thailand, which is a common entity to both. And so what role do you think, in the context of everything you said, what role do you think that the UN could make in enabling dialogue between these two camps, which are not necessarily opposed to each other, but at the same time have fewer common entities? So I think the more the merrier, right? So how do you see the UN playing a role in enabling that sort of dialogue?
Well, I would actually hope that there will be more states who will sign up both to the Artemis Accords and to the ILRS cooperation, because I believe in essence they are promoting the same principles, which are the principles that are enshrined in the Outer Space Treaty. And of course, in Artemis Accords we have the set of principles, we have it on paper, we see what it is about. For ILRS, we do not really have yet an instrument that is made public, but I know that the common principles are quite similar. And the UN is taking all these principles, just like the Hague Working Group, I was one of the founders of, which established 20 building blocks for space resource governance. All these instruments are input to the UN, because of course UN COPOS as such is only meeting two weeks a year in the legal subcommittee, and they don't have time to think about all the little nitty-gritty. And so they will use those inputs of regional or national or whatever developments there are, where people have been thinking about what should we include in such a system, and then take that and mix and match and hopefully come out with some common denominators that everybody can agree to. And so, yeah, these are steps, building blocks towards global agreement. You cannot expect, I think, at the UN level to come up with a treaty on space, on lunar governance from scratch. So we should see all that as components towards global consensus.
Thanks. Guarav, let's come to you. What I would like to hear is your experience with the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter. So for the audience here, the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter has a very elegant radar system which has been not only mapping water ice on the moon's poles, but also has been actually involved in Artemis landing site selection work. So there's been active collaboration between ISRO and NASA on that front. And Guarav here has been involved in the engineering of that instrument, as well as several other associated missions. So what we would like to hear from you is what was it like during the conception phase of the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter mission, and during the development part, what were the challenges you faced? If you could highlight a particular one which was quite important, and how you overcame that, because the instrument has been clearly doing its job, and we would really love to know what went into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, something very unique to imaging instruments is that they need to be very well calibrated before you can start generating geophysical parameters out of them. So one of the major challenges there was that lack of calibration targets on the moon. You can't send corner reflectors or stuff like that for the calibration. So we had to come up with a very unique strategy of ground-based characterization, where a lot of that calibration was smartly done on ground. And then we used the phase when we were around the Earth, cruising towards moon. We tried to take images over the Amazon and use that to calibrate the target. And then once we were at the moon, the mission also had a lander, so the image is also public. The instrument tried to image the lander, and we knew the kind of reflectivity which would be generated due to the lander because it was our own hardware, and that was again used to, smartly calibrate the instrument. So this was, if you ask me, one of the major challenges. This was one, and we could very well overcome it, due to great work from the team, and because of which the instrument has been continuing to give great results. I think we are now in year 5 or year 6 and have ISRO has mapped all of the poles and is also doing non-polar targets extensively now.
Amazing. And it's quite interesting to me how the Earth has been used for calibration for a lunar instrument, and obviously Earth observation satellites use the moon as a calibration point for their Earth observation as well. So it's quite interesting.
As someone
Yes.
correctly said, moon is part of the Earth. So.
Yes, yes, Bernard.
Yeah, just on this point of coordination of activities, for instance, this calibration of targets, at ILOA-ILEWG, we started this activity under Carly Peters, so who became also PI of an instrument of Round 1, and that conduct also PI on other mission to select a few targets on the moon that we would all observe, and actually we observed them with Smart 1, with all the mission, and then we could really learn about our instruments. This also coordination at the data level led also to a coordination in where you could put instruments from another countries on an international mission. And Chandrayaan 1 was the most international mission at some stage. Yep. So congratulations, India, for that. And also, then the next step was to try to develop some vehicles with them. And so now we have the example of LUPEX, where you have 2 countries, one providing the lander, other providing the rover. So they are more and more collaborating, also at the level of the hardware. But we have also to develop some standards for communication, for navigation, positioning. And for this, there is a lot of opportunities for commercial service to be involved. Yeah. And and this can be used for many missions of governmental origin, also commercial origin. So that's how this new lunar economy is now growing up.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's very interesting. Thanks for that, Bernard. Now I would like to turn to the Europeans on the panel, and we would like to shift from a global perspective to a little bit of a regional one. We have heard over the duration of the conference as to how Europe has been recalibrating for their lunar exploration strategy. And I think that's an excellent move. We just heard yesterday that ESA and ISRO are collaborating on human spaceflight. But of course, there's also the question about the NASA budgets affecting Europe. So what I would like to hear from you guys is, drawing from your experience, what is one thing that you would like to see Europe do in lunar exploration that could give it a more independent stance and also contribute to global exploration of the moon?
Human spaceflight capability.
As well as robotic lunar exploration, but independently.
Well, yes, but if we want to be independent, or at least not too dependent on others, I think we can do much. And I mean, I'm not a scientist or an engineer, so don't quote me on that. But what we really lack is that capability to send humans into outer space. And if I had one vision for Europe, it would be to develop that, depending, of course, on the finance and the technical capabilities. But that would be wonderful.
Thanks.
I'm also short, Bernard will be longer. I think something what having been working, also on ExoMars for a long time, we entry, descent, and landing technologies, EDLs, is something what has not been developed. There are a lot of gaps which has to be followed in Europe in order to be more autonomous. It is discussed now since 2, 3, 4 years extensively in Europe, not only by ESA but also by the European Union, that one has to be more autonomous and has to build up technological gaps and so on. But it is a very, very slow process. I think we are talking about that since 20 years, yeah? And because there are so many decision makers involved, yeah? And I hope that there is, in particular because of the geological landscape, that there is more the mindset going into this direction, like Tanja said.
Thanks.
In old space, 25 years ago, ESA was able to develop a mission to the moon in 3 years, smart one. A mission to Mars, Mars Express, also in 3 years. We developed a mission to Venus in 2.5 years. So we have all the technical ability to do it. Now some people say, oh, let's have a big vision for Europe, but vision without execution is hallucination. And if you put the vision and you delay it without really working with all the stakeholders, industry has to be involved to be competitive. So the management also, so like Pascale mentioned ExoMars, but we went in many directions in ExoMars. Initially, ExoMars was supposed to be an autonomous European mission to develop all these technologies. That actually, we developed some of them, but then we had a collaboration with US that abandoned us. Then we went to Russia, with whom we worked very well, but unfortunately we got the conflict that stopped everything. But clearly, we have the means in Europe to develop satellites. We are very good. We could, entry, descent, landing. We had one probe that managed to reach the surface. That was Beagle 2. Beagle 2 went to the surface. Just could not work because its panel didn't open. But it went to the surface. And then we developed one probe 10 times bigger, 10 times more expensive, that didn't even reach the surface. So, we have to learn. It's difficult. It's more difficult on the moon even to do soft landing. But we have the technical capacity, but we need a good focus and a good technical and management partnership between all the stakeholders. And we need also some courage and some continuity into what we are doing. But we had a project of a lunar lander we could have launched in 2005. Now we have one big lander, Argonaut, which is planned for 2031.
Thanks. Steve? Yes.
Thanks, Jatan. I have a couple of observations to share. One on the international approach to the moon. About a year ago, we started at ILOA focusing on a trilateral approach to the moon with India, China, and USA. Why those three? Because those are the only three countries that have declared their intention to send their nationals to the moon by their own resources. And by USA, I mean our traditional space station partners, Canada, Europe, Japan, Russia. And it's not a bad balance or bad trilateral symmetry worth exploring. And here, I'm so thankful that we're in this marvelous conference hall in incredible, independent, innovative India. So I think we can all take heart that it's not just between USA and China. India and Europe, as a US ally, are also keenly involved in this. On the entrepreneurial, independent, commercial side of things, one of the interesting observations that's been shared by Pascale and Tanja and Bernard, I haven't heard it quite so clearly before as here, namely that the moon is really part of the Earth. It's a two-world system. And that raises questions that here on Earth, we have private property. So how would that translate or be denied the same kind of practices on the moon if there are, part of the American dream is owning your own home. What about the moon? So international questions, including India, independent enterprise questions, including the similarity or the eighth continent of the moon. How does it differ in terms of human practices and development from what we've done on Earth? I hope there are differences, of course. And I'd like to also commend Tanya's hope that America and China and India and all collaborate together, even independently, but together. So that's a question. If the Earth and Moon are part of a system, the Moon is the eighth continent, why shouldn't Earth practices that are constructive, say from a Western civilization point of view, where independent enterprise and private property are enshrined fairly high, that may be a question for the future.
Can I
Yes,
very
Tanja?
quickly respond? Because Steve, you know, you can own your home on the moon if you would want to. It's just that you cannot own the moon because no one is the boss of the celestial body as such. But objects that are in outer space are owned, and that is not, it's like satellites in the geostationary orbit. They are owned, but they are not entitled to a permanent place. They do not own the slot or the orbit. They have a using right. And that is the same. And sometimes even here on Earth, you have you have the right to have an object on a terrain, but you do not own the ground. So that's the only difference. And it needs coordination, again, because there's no sovereign state that can be the boss, so to say. But owning objects or a station or an installation is not prohibited. So again, that wonderful outer space treaty.
A short one. Also, I love the space treaty because it prohibits war. It prohibits weapons. So on the moon and other celestial bodies. So I want to keep this part. And no borders, but you could have also something like...
Has the treaty ever been amended, or could it be amended?
Yeah, it can be, but I think that the fact that you have no conflict of territories, it's an asset. And then you can have the model of Antarctica, where you can have a platform for research. Partly the moon can be there. You can have also the ocean, where nobody owns the ocean, but you can go fishing there. So you can exploit some of the resources. So you don't need to own the land or the ocean to have a very good benefit for everybody.
Okay. Yes, Pascal.
Well, in America, you own land when you buy the house.
So since we have less than 4 minutes left, I would like to end up with a quick but very important question. Speaking of the moon being part of Earth, but you know, I'm sure we all believe that here because we know its scientific importance, but I'm not sure if the public at large does. Even at the height of the Apollo program, it could not be sustained because public support wasn't there enough. And so this time when we go, we should make sure that not only do we go, but we have the public support to stay. And so just since we are short on time, but I would like to hear one thing that you think, each of you thinks that we should do to expand the public's interest, expand and invigorate the public's interest in lunar exploration. What is the one thing that you would do if you had all the power in the world? Steve?
Well, I just mentioned, let people have a little skin in the game. Independent ownership up to a point. If I can make a second recommendation, it would be what the Artemis program helps to do, to make the moon accessible for all people, the other half of humanity. I think when the first woman touches down on the moon, it will be the signature event of the 21st century to that time, opening up the moon to all of humanity. I don't think you have to go all the way to Mars for humanity to become a multi-world civilization.
Thanks. Pascal?
Well, I think citizen science is, and involving the society at large, this is what we're all trying to do. There has to be much more. And I think what we didn't mention yet, that's of course education and the education of teachers, you know, in order, you know, to create a generation which can actually be inspired and also work on the future of this new space exploration era.
Thanks.
Yeah, for me, it's the principle that we put for Moon Village. So all benefits the moon for all, or space renaissance on the moon for all, and that includes knowledge, science, but also developing technologies for the benefit of not only humanity, for the whole biosphere has to benefit, but also business opportunities, and developing also a new culture because we will be a multi-planetary species to take care more of the Earth, but also to prepare ourselves to expand life in the solar system with the values of exploration, but also the values of doing all together, like a renaissance, like in Italy, the renaissance, but now a space renaissance for all the world.
Thanks. Tanya?
Yeah, I'm like Pascal. I also think that if I had all the power of the world, I would want all the governments to really do much more in raising public awareness about the importance of space exploration and specifically the moon. Education, outreach, we really need to up our game. There is not enough awareness of the importance of space for our life here on Earth in all its aspects that we have been hearing here for the past days. So.
Absolutely, Guarav.
I mean, if you want public support, be capital efficient is something I'd like to say in the entire exploration process. And the Indian space program has proven time and again of being very capital efficient while trying to develop complex technologies. And now with the private sector coming in, and the Indian space policy allows the private sector to even, do interplanetary stuff. I think Indian startups and new space ecosystem can build for the world in a very capital efficient way in order to, sustain all the curiosity and the scientific experiments people want to do.
It makes it easier to have public support. Yes, and we are just exactly on time.
Yeah, 0-0, we can always see that.
Thanks a lot to the stellar panel. A round of applause for answering all sorts of questions across a range of topics. And as the very last point, as a communicator at heart, I couldn't agree more with any of the all of the points that you have said about making people more interested in the moon. Thanks a lot again, and let's have a picture to close the session.